There are moments when heaven feels quiet, when your prayers rise like smoke but seem to vanish into the stillness, when you whisper to God but hear nothing in return. And in that silence, you begin to wonder, have I been forgotten? Is He angry with me? Am I not praying the right way? Or worse, is He even listening? But silence is not absence. It's not rejection. It's not abandonment. Sometimes, silence is God's invitation to listen more deeply, to pause, to breathe, to remember who He is, not just what He can do. Think of Elijah on the mountain. There was wind, there was earthquake, there was fire, but God was not in those things. Then, a gentle whisper, a still small voice. That's where God was. So if you're in a season where the sky feels sealed, if the silence is stretching longer than your strength, hold on. Don't rush. Don't panic. He's closer than you feel. And He's not ignoring you. He's building something in you, something deeper than answers, something stronger than quick fixes. He's teaching you trust. You don't need to feel Him to believe He's near. You don't need signs to know He's sovereign. Even when your heart aches for a word, His presence remains. Think about Jesus in the wilderness. 40 days. Alone, no voice from heaven, no miracles, just hunger, just heat, just stillness. But even there, He wasn't abandoned. Even there, the Spirit was with Him. The silence didn't mean separation, it meant preparation. Sometimes the quiet is the very place where faith is born, not in the fire of answered prayer, but in the cold space where nothing seems to move. God is still God when He's quiet, and you're still His child when you're confused. Let the silence shape you, not shake you. Let it draw you deeper, not drive you away. You don't need to perform. You don't need to pretend. You just need to be still and know. You remember the moments He spoke clearly, the healing, the breakthrough, the confirmation. But what about now? Now, when all you hear is your own breathing, when prayers seem to vanish into the ceiling, when no verse jumps out, when worship feels dry, when your heart is heavy and your hands are empty. Is He still with you? Yes, because His presence was never tied to your senses. His nearness isn't measured by emotion. He walks with you through the mundane, through the routine, through the silence. God doesn't stop being faithful just because He's quiet. He doesn't stop loving because you can't feel it. Even a quiet God is still a present God. And sometimes He trusts you with the silence because He knows your roots are growing deeper in the waiting. You may not understand this season, but it's not wasted. It's not pointless. The quiet is doing a deeper work. Trust it. Faith isn't built only on answered prayers. It's built in the echoes, in the spaces between miracles, in the stillness between what was promised and what has yet to come. Think of Abraham. Years passed between promise and fulfillment. He wandered, waited, wondered, but still, he believed. Think of Joseph in the pit, in prison, forgotten, but never alone. And Jesus, in the garden, sweating blood, on the cross, crying out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Even he knew the silence. Even he felt the absence. But resurrection came. Silence broke. Heaven spoke. So trust, even now, even here, even when the world is quiet and God seems far. He is working. He is listening. He is God. Maybe this silence is not rejection, but invitation. An invitation to go deeper, to no longer rely on what you feel, but on what you know to be true. God doesn't abandon. He refines. He doesn't disappear. He hides you in the shadow of His wings. And sometimes, the wings are so vast, you forget you are under them. When you stop hearing His voice, you might start hearing your own. The fears, the doubts, the noise of the world. But that's when your faith has a voice. That's when trust starts to sound like worship. Not with music, but with surrender. You say, I don't understand, but I will stay. I can't see the next step, but I will walk. I don't feel Him, but I believe He's here. Because silence doesn't mean absence. Stillness doesn't mean indifference. And waiting doesn't mean you're forgotten. The silence of God can be holy, not because it feels sacred, but because it shapes something sacred in you. Look at the desert. Jesus was led there by the Spirit. He wasn't abandoned. He was being prepared. In the silence, lies are exposed. You face the enemy not with noise, but with truth. It is written, Jesus said, not I feel, not I sense, but it is written. This is how you stand in the quiet, with the Word, with truth planted deep. So when you can't feel God's presence, you stand on what He already said. Promises, unchanging, eternal, even when everything else goes quiet. He spoke before. He'll speak again. But for now, let the silence teach you to listen without panic. Let it grow in you the kind of faith that flourishes in the dark. There are seasons where heaven feels closed. You pray, and nothing shifts. You wait, and no answer comes. Not because God is absent, but because He's building endurance in you. When the disciples were caught in the storm, Jesus was asleep. He hadn't left them. He was in the boat the whole time, silent, but near. The storm didn't wake Him. Their fear did. And still, before calming the sea, He calmed their faith. Why are you afraid? He asked. He was teaching them to trust, even when He doesn't move immediately. This is your storm. This is your silence. But He is still in your boat. And one day, He will rise, speak, and the waves will obey. Until then, your peace is not in the storm's end. It's in His presence, even when He sleeps. There's a kind of strength born in silence, not the loud, showy kind, but the quiet, immovable kind. The kind that stands when feelings fade, that believes even without seeing, that chooses faith over fear, again and again. God isn't testing you to see you fail. He's stretching you to make you whole. He's removing the need for constant affirmation, so your soul can learn to breathe without it. Mature faith doesn't demand signs. It lives rooted in truth, in what God has already spoken, in the promises written long before the pain came. If you're in a silent season, you're not being punished. You're being anchored in a God who never changes, even when the world around you does. So stay steady, stay soft, stay listening, because even in silence, He is near. And that is enough. There's beauty in not having all the answers. It forces your heart to lean, to bow, to wait. God's silence isn't neglect. It's an invitation. To trust not in what you feel, but in who He is. It's in the quiet that your roots grow deep. When no one sees, when no one cheers, when the only thing holding you up is His promise. You might feel like nothing is changing, but the deepest work God does is often the most hidden. He's reshaping your heart, realigning your desires, teaching you how to walk, not by sight, but by faith. Don't run from this silence. Sit in it, breathe in it, let it soften you. God is not far. He's just quiet. And sometimes, that's how He speaks loudest. And so, we return to the silence, not as a void, but as a sacred space. A place where God's voice is not absent, but deeper, slower, like the whisper of wind through the trees. When God seems silent, He is often the most near, inviting us to lean not on answers, but on His presence. You may not hear thunder or see lightning, but in the quiet, a seed is growing. Faith is stretching its roots deep, far below the surface. And one day, you will look back and see that this silence was not a punishment, but a preparation. Keep walking, keep trusting, keep breathing in His peace. For even in the silence, God is speaking, and He is with you always.